In the last stream, we were continuing our work over here by our fission reactors, setting up this abomination of a setup that looks horrendous, but does the job and is currently working to produce the LEU-235 fuel automatically for our first reactor. It then processes the depleted LEU-235 fuel and recreates the LEU-233 fuel, which is then being burned in this reactor, and it also takes the depleted LEU-233 fuel and reprocesses that up into this HEP-241 fuel. And the plan for the start of today's episode is going to be to try and finish off this kind of line of processing. I want to get this reactor up and running so we can start burning this HEP-241 fuel. In doing so, we're going to get depleted HEP-241 fuel. We're then, of course, going to reprocess that to try and get the HECM-247 fuel. For that, we need curium-247 and curium-246, both of which we do get from the depleted HEP-241 fuel, and then we're going to set up another reactor, of course, to burn the HECM-247 fuel. That is going to be the final reactor that we build, I promise, and that is going to give us the depleted HECM-247 fuel, which we can then reprocess for a final time into all of this Californium with a little bit of berkelium, I think is how that's pronounced. And so this Californium is, of course, what we're after because it's going to allow us to craft the quantum research, or start crafting the quantum research. So, last episode, we did begin simulating a reactor that would be able to process the HEP fuel. The trouble that we were running into is that we couldn't make a reactor that just uses lapis coolers, because the lapis coolers on their own are not good enough. There's no combination of lapis coolers that you can put in a reactor of this size, or potentially in a reactor of any size, that can dissipate the 780 heat units per tick that this HEP fuel emits. And so what we ended up deciding on doing was unlocking the tin coolers. And so between streams, we have continued to produce more chemical research. We are still backing up on plastic. We've got 92 more. Right now, that's still not being sent around automatically. Again, just because I do want to make sure that we have enough to build the remaining reactors. Once we've got the reactors online, we'll rehook up the plastic and also probably move the plastic production over to this area of the base so that we can hook it directly up to our big multi-block capacitor bank. Between streams, I have made a few more of these HV capacitor banks. We've got just a couple more coming over here now, so we can set up more machines fairly easily. But the good news is that we now have enough of the chemical research to actually unlock the tin coolers, which I believe are the best coolers, at least in terms of their ability to dissipate heat. There's no cooler that does more than 300 heat units per tick, to the best of my knowledge. And so we do need 64 lots of 8x utility, which we actually don't have. That is a real bummer. And the question really is whether or not we're going to be able to get that in a meaningful period of time. The reason for it is because these have been off for a little while, and while they are running right now, we don't have many of them. It looks like we do have a lot of gears, like more than enough gears to make it work. And so what I might do real quick is kind of just double up on researchers, maybe even more than double up on researchers, and see if we can't turbo our way through kind of the remaining utility research required. Other than that, we need 64x8 production, which we do have, thankfully. Let's go ahead, hand that in. We also need 32x mechanics and a bunch of logistics. 64, lots of 64 logistics. That's very expensive. So I'll build some more researchers, and we'll see if we can't get up to 64 lots of the 8x utility, and then we'll unlock the tin coolers. I have begun backing up on lapis. We set this up at the end of the last episode. So over here, we've got 5,258 lapis lazuli and 584 lapis blocks, which I think should be enough to make all the lapis coolers we're going to need. And I have also requested some of the kind of base coolers between streams. So we've got 165 empty coolers, which should be just enough to get the first reactor here online. I haven't yet looked at the simulation for this reactor, but it's probably going to be about the same. Between streams, the arc furnace here has fully used up all of the electrodes. It did burn through them very quickly. That's kind of the bad news. The good news is that we've got a ton of uranium. Over here, we've got almost 12,000 uranium backed up, and that's before it gets multiplied by about 21 as it goes through the setup here. And so there's still well over 200,000 uranium worth of ingots stored in this drawer. And so we do at some point need to make some more rods. I think we do have enough graphite for that. Yeah, over here we've got 64 hot graphite ingots, which I'm fairly certain we can craft into 3 more electrodes. Let me make sure we get the blueprint real quick for the electrodes. The only trouble is that we are actually losing coal coke. You'll see this drawer is not full, it's got 2, and I think our blast furnaces are a little tight on coal coke. So we could definitely do with upping our coke production. For the time being, I've just disconnected this right here, so we're no longer sending coal coke to be turned into hot graphite. For now, we've got enough hot graphite to kind of keep this going, but that is something else we're going to have to work on at some point in the not-so-distant future. But let me quickly go and set up at least 4 more researchers. Okay, so not too long later, we've got 33 out of the required 64 utility research, which is not, of course, the 64 that we need, but I have added 8 more researchers to the line here, and I've put down a bunch of these tier 2 speed upgrades, and of course upgraded the power input to these energy exporters because they now need quite a lot of power to actually produce this research, but it's coming in pretty quickly, or at least quicker than it was previously, and so hopefully, before the end of today's episode, we're going to be able to unlock those tin coolers and actually set up the last 2 reactors. While we wait for that, though, we can take a look at what else is required for the quantum research and begin actually looking at unlocking that stuff. So, to make it, the Californium, of course, we're working on, but the thermoconducting alloy and the DU plating are something that we can take a look at. For the thermoconducting alloy, we need extreme alloy and boron arsenide. The extreme alloy is tough alloy and hard carbon alloy. Our system already knows how to make the tough alloy. It doesn't know how to make the hard carbon alloy. This is an alloy between graphite and diamonds of course we have from our shulker data model. The graphite, for that we're going to need to get a smelter to smelt the graphite dust. Graphite dust we get by pulverizing pulverized coal in a manufactory, and the pulverized coal we get by putting just regular coal either into a pulverizer or also into a manufactory. I think the manufactory might be the better option here just because of the fact that we can make it so much faster with speed and energy upgrades. Chat is right here that I didn't hook up the new researchers to the pre-existing setup. That's actually a very good point, and so we are going to start to get more research, but it's actually not going to go anywhere. That, for the time being, is fine. It's going to take quite a while for 64 to fill up on all of these, but it does mean that we're going to have to check up on those manually to make sure that they're not completely full and to get an accurate idea of how much we actually have. 41 is a lot closer to 64, though. But anyway, while we wait, let's have a look at that. So let me quickly steal 2 machine frames here, and let's see about using those to make 2 manufactories. Now, I think the big problem that we're likely to run into here is coal, because coal is something that we've got a decent amount of, but I don't think we've got a ton of. We also need more advanced plating. Again, I'm fairly certain that we're backing up quite nicely on advanced plating in these machines here. Yeah, especially the ones that I don't steal from very often. It's this one here that I keep taking all of the plating from. But either way, let's quickly do this and then get 1 and 2 manufactories. So currently, we do have coal, and we've got quite a lot of coal stuck in our drawers. What I think we should probably do is maybe tweak this system in a couple of ways. The first way that we should probably tweak it is we should probably add a storage drawer somewhere for regular coal, but the drawer for regular coal should probably be like a very low priority because, of course, we want all of the coal to go to the coke ovens first to make sure that it gets turned into coal coke. The second thing that we should probably just bite the bullet and do is replace these coke ovens with redstone furnaces that are upgraded with the pyrolytic conversion augment, this one right here. If we do that, I think we're going to be able to make coal coke much faster, which not only, of course, is going to keep our power online, it's also going to allow us to make the hot graphite because we need to keep our arc furnaces going. But again, looking forward, there's also a quest that wants us to hand in 1,000 hot graphite. So this is something we are going to have to do kind of sooner rather than later. So let's quickly whip up a couple of redstone furnaces. I'm not quite sure how many redstone furnaces we're going to need to make coal coke at the same speed as the coke ovens, but let's make a couple of redstone furnaces. I'll go ahead and make maybe 4. And I'll also make, I think, 4 signalum conversion kits. These ones right here that allow us to go straight all the way up to signalum. And then we can see just how fast they are and whether or not we're going to need more. Okay, so I've got 4 redstone furnaces and 4 of these signalum conversion kits. I think what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and tear down this first coke oven here. Ideally without dropping our hammer. Perfect. And I think all we'll do is we'll just go 1, 2, 3, 4. That way we can set the left side of these to input and the right side to output. We do, of course, need to make the augment that is going to allow us to actually make this happen. For that, we need some invar gears. We need 4 of these specifically. That is fine. We then need some copper plates, some redstone servos. I'll make a stack of these. I feel like I keep making them. They're not that expensive. We've got so much iron and so much redstone that it's not going to be a problem for us. And then nether brick. Do we have 4 nether brick? We do not, unfortunately, but we do have the nether brick required to make the nether brick. And so, boom, and boom. Nice. All right, let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, as well as 1, 2, 3, 4. So here, I think what we'll do is we'll have 2 outputs. We'll have the fluid output at the top. That way we can take our medium pressure fluid pipes and do something like this. We can just set all of those to extract, and then we're just going to send all of that creosote around to the same place as all of our other creosote. I think it's the same creosote that we get, although it might not be. It might be a thermal expansion creosote. If it is, that's probably fine. It'll probably just get sent to the nullifier through that pipe, which is okay. We don't really need the excess creosote. This creosote is a-okay. Next up, we need to grab our red paper, also known as our red print, and I'm just going to shift right click, right click, right click, right click, right click. That's going to copy and paste the settings to make them all the same. And then from there, we just need to make sure that all of these are set to insert on green, and then ideally to extract on brown. So for that, we'll make this input and output like that. And I guess we can get rid of this side. And then we'll do this, 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 and this. And then using our conduit probe, we can just copy the settings and then just paste, 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 and paste. And so that should start inserting coal into those. It does. Now what we need to do is give them power. And then optionally, we can take a look at upgrading these with speed augments if they are not fast enough. Once we've got power going to all these machines, we can see that this is coming in a lot faster. Let me once again copy, paste, 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 so that all of these come online. It only uses 10 redstone flux per tick, and you'll see that it's a lot faster at making the coal coke. Still not super fast. It is a different kind of coal coke as well. Not that I think that necessarily matters, but over here, the speed of the coke oven is pretty quick, actually. It's quicker than I thought it was. Over here, these are doing okay, but of course, we can make these a fair bit faster using the speed augments. We've got 2 in the system, and we can, of course, make really as many of these as we like. Gold and redstone are not resources that we're light on. If we fill this up, it now uses only 60 redstone flux per tick, which is honestly less than I thought it would. And I think that is going to give us a sizable boost to our coal coke output. This doesn't, of course, fix our coal problem. The coal problem is a different problem that we're going to have to fix by upgrading our sawmill potentially. But we only have to upgrade our sawmill if we're already not producing enough coal, which I think we might be. I think the coal might just not be going anywhere because of the fact that it's just sitting inside the sawmill. So let's quickly fill all of these up with augments to make them as fast as we possibly can. Once those are all filled up, we're now just making more coal coke. Again, we've got a bit of a problem. That problem is that we've got different kinds of coal coke. What I might do in that case is I might change this setup in such a way that we use the new coal coke for making hop graphite instead of the old coal coke. So I might leave the old coal coke where it is, take the new coal coke, create a new item export card in here. So item, coal coke, variable card. And if we use that to replace the coal coke that is being exported over here, so if we take you out and put you in, oh, no, ignore me. This goes here. This card is useless. That's my bad. Get rid of that. We just need to change this, right? This is currently locked to the other coal coke. We want to change it so that it's locked to the new coal coke. To do that, we need to get at least one of the old coal cokes because we have to have an item in the drawer in order to delete it. So let me steal some of this, and then back over here, we can drop this coal coke into the drawer, unlock the drawer, take out all the coal coke. If you try and take all the items out and then unlock it, it just stays locked, so that doesn't work. Put the new one in, lock that, and then move this back over to here, like that. And then from there, we can just connect that up to the old system with some cable. And then it's just a case of setting up a new storage drawer for the new kind of coal coke. And at that point, everything should be good to go. So let's quickly grab one more drawer. Let's texture it to look like marble. Boom. And then back over here, I'm just going to put this down somewhere. It doesn't really matter where. If I put it here and we set the insert to brown, that should be fine. If we get at least one of these, and again, lock this drawer to this coal coke. Now, if we set that to insert on brown, that should start to receive the coal coke from here. And again, so long as these are both set to input and output on the left-hand side, all of that's going to go to there. And the final thing to make this work is just to get another item interface, place that down onto here, connect that up with some cable, and that should be good to go. That should start taking that coal coke, sending it around over to the crusher. That crusher is going to start processing that, and then our inventory reader here is going to keep the system from using too much too fast, but hopefully that's going to keep the hot graphite kind of coming in, or at least the hot graphite dust coming in without affecting our power production or our steel production. I said without affecting it. We have lost one coke oven. If we really wanted to, of course, we could set another one up over at the end, but hopefully this is pretty much good. Now, in terms of the coal situation, we can obviously make unlimited coal with this, and we are making unlimited coal with this. It is getting used pretty quickly, though, but we should be able to make a lot of this faster. Again, the only trouble now is that we don't have enough coal coming in. Okay, so I've upgraded the sawmill here to Signalum, and we've added in a bunch of these speed augments. So the coal is now being made faster, and I think that's okay. Right now, these are all still filling up, but I have a feeling that these will all fill up because I think we're producing the coal now faster than it's being used over here. And so I'm hopeful that now what we should be able to do is get yet another drawer, this time for coal, throw that down and just give it a lower priority than all of the coke ovens and redstone furnaces. What that should basically do is just give a place for the coal to go once everything is backed up, right? So if we were to put that drawer down somewhat awkwardly right about here next to the pre-existing one, we could then rotate that, ideally, so that it faces forward. And this whole area could do with a renovation because it's a bit janky, and by a bit, I mean extremely. We could then change this to insert on green, but just set it to a really low priority. So we'll set it to like -10 on the priority and say insert. That way it should receive coal, but it should only receive coal once everything else has coal. So right now, these are all full, as are all of these. And so now we're actually getting coal into this framed drawer, which is perfect because now we can use this coal for the automation of the extreme alloys. So let's do you and you, and that should be kind of perfect. You'll see we're still making more coal. Of course, more coal coke is coming in. The coal coke will always go here before it goes anywhere else. The only downside to this system is that until the coal drawer fills up, we're not going to start backing up on coal coke because all the coal coke is getting turned into coal. And whilst there's always going to be more coal coke being made, it's not going to start backing up on coal coke until this drawer fills up on coal. So it's definitely going to take a while for us to back up on coal coke again, but I think that's kind of fine. The coal coke in our boilers lasts a long time, and I don't think it's going to take that long, really, for this to back up with 2048 coal. So I'm hoping everything there should be all right, although I guess what's going to happen as soon as we start using that coal, we're just going to kick that can further down the road in terms of how long it takes before we get more coal coke. And so what I might do is go ahead and drop in another storage downgrade into the drawer that we've just made for coal. That way, it's only ever going to store a stack, which should be fine, but it also should mean that we start to back up on coal coke a bit more regularly. So let's do you. I'll make a few of these just because I feel like we're always making the drawer upgrade templates. And then let's make a downgrade, and then let's put that downgrade into here just as soon as we take out a fair bit of the coal, and then boom. So that's now full up. That's ready to go. And so if we go get our 2 manufactories down, we should be able to start automating the production of the ingot that we're after, that I have forgotten the name of. We are looking to make graphite ingots, of course. So we need one more redstone furnace, which should be very doable, actually. Let me go steal a machine frame out of here, and then redstone furnace. Can we make one more of these? I think the answer is yes, but we're going to need 2 more external heaters. That is not a problem. Boom. And then back over here is where I think we're going to do some of the auto crafting. So let's think. I'm going to move this because we don't need this rock crusher here anymore. We might not even need this rock crusher in general going forward, but for the time being, I'll just move it out of the way in case we do. And then I'm basically just going to throw down the manufactory, redstone furnace. I think we can turn auto input on that on, and so that should be fine. This is also not needed, actually. This was part of the rock crushing setup, so I'm just going to move that and put it on top of the rock crusher for the time being. But here, if we export coal to this manufactory, and of course, if we give all of these energy exporters like this, we can then turn the coal into pulverized coal, and then, oh, we are going to have to move this a little bit, right, because of the fact that you can't auto-eject or auto-input with the manufactory there. So let me quickly do this, actually, and let's replace that energy exporter down. Boom, and boom. Back over here, we can replace down that item cable like this. Of course, set you to insert, set you to extract, always active. That's going to pull the pulverized coal over into here, and then that's going to produce graphite dust over here. We can set the left side to input. That's going to pull the graphite dust in, and then we'll go ahead and we will set, I think, the back side to output like that, and then throw that down like so. And again, I'm going to put a downgrade in there simply due to the fact that we're about to throw down an item exporter over here like that, and we're going to set this to basically continually export coal. So we're going to keep this full of coal, but obviously I don't want all of our coal being taken, because if all of our coal gets taken, then we're never going to bank up on coal coke, which is not what we want. So I'm going to kind of just limit how much of the graphite ingots we can make, and then obviously more will be made as and when they're needed. All we need to do is get yet another item variable card for coal, and then we're going to put that into here under export item. That should send coal over. It does. And this is going to slowly but surely make the graphite ingots for us. Going forward, if we want to make this faster, or if we find ourselves needing to make this faster, we can, of course, go ahead and put speed and energy upgrades into here, here, and, of course, upgrade kits onto here. But for the time being, I think this should do the job just fine. And all we really need to do is this and this. And now we are able to teach our system how to make the alloy that is hard carbon. Now, you can only make this in the alloy furnace or in the electrode alloyer, which is a bit of a pain because I've already put the card together for what we're exporting to the electrode alloyer. So over here, we've already put the 2 cards in, the 2 list cards, that is, for what's going to get extracted and inserted where. Like, we have these export items here. All we need to do is recreate these lists, but with hard carbon and diamond. Because I am lazy and I don't want to have to redo those lists, what I think we might do is get 2 more item exporters, put one of those here. I don't know if I can connect this up without connecting it to the main system. Can I do this and then disconnect like this connection? I totally can. If we do this, like that, we can then get rid of this. We can then put an item card that just tells this to export the hard carbon from here, and that's going to work in exactly the same way. And then we can do the same over here. We can do this, this, and this. And then the idea here is that if we take a diamond, and if we take one of those new graphite ingots, we can then make 2 more item cards, one for diamonds, and one for graphite. The correct graphite, not hop graphite. And then over here, it doesn't matter which one we use for which. We can do item, export, and item, export. All that's going to do is it's just going to tell this chest where to send those items when we add hard carbon to this crafting setup, which we're going to do here. We're going to click recipe. We're going to type in hard carbon, and we're going to teach this recipe in code. We can then add that in up here. And now this alloyer should know how to make the hard carbon. And so once we start looking at producing the quantum research, and specifically the thermoconducting alloy, we can have our system produce that hard carbon for us. And then after that, it's also just a question of teaching it the extreme alloy, which is tough alloy and hard carbon as well. The fact that we need more, like we need to add another recipe here. The recipe itself, of course, for the extreme alloy is not difficult to teach to the alloyer. The tricky part is getting the items where they need to go. So we can encode this recipe, of course, and we can add that to this list here. That's completely fine. What we then need to do, though, is we then need to add to these. Right now we've got export item. We might just have to set up new lists. I don't think you can put multiple cards into one exporter, can you? No, you can't, unfortunately. That's fine. What we might have to do, though, is swap this out from a item card to a list card, because we need to add hard carbon and tough alloy to the lists as well. And then following on from then, we also need to add extreme alloy and boron arsenide to the list. And for that, we're going to need yet another one of these crafting interfaces. Do we have a spare interface? We do indeed. Let's slap that down right about there. Let's quickly get the final recipe in for the thermoconducting alloy, like this. And then let's do this. And really, before we go fiddling with the lists, the last thing that we need to figure out is the boron arsenide. The boron arsenide is made using an ingot former. I'll bookmark that, because we need to turn boron arsenide, molten boron arsenide, into boron arsenide. The molten boron arsenide is made in a chemical reactor, bookmark that, with boron and arsenic. Boron you can get by just melting boron. Unfortunately, it does look like it has to be boron 11. However, we can just use an isotope separator to get boron 11, so it's basically just boron ingots, but with extra steps. That's fine. Let me go ahead and bookmark the isotope separator. We're going to need yet another one of those. Then molten arsenic is from crushed arsenic, so we need a melter for that. And crushed arsenic we get from the rock crusher, which we already have, with andesite. Andesite we can make automatically using an igneous extruder, which is a machine we've not yet used, but should be able to make fairly easily. We just need to steal a machine frame, whack that in like so, and then this guy is going to allow us to make andesite using lava and water. It doesn't actually use the lava, but there does have to be lava in there, and it does use the water, so we do need to put this down probably next to an aqueous accumulator. So we do need to figure out where to put this. This area here, I kind of want to save for plastic, because again, I want to be able to run this HV capacitor over and then power the plastic that way. Between streams, I did set up a new upper level to the base here, just some more bricks, treated wood, and steel scaffolding. This gives us a nice view of the top of the base as well. And I think we might use this space to automate the production of the arsenic. And this was basically just an area to give us more space to do stuff. So what we'll do, we'll throw this guy down right in the corner, like this. We'll then grab another aqueous accumulator, and we'll throw that down on the back, like that. So that's going to give it all of the water that it needs if the back's set to output, and if the back of this is also set to output. Perfect. It then does need at least one bucket of lava. As we saw earlier in the pack, we can indeed just craft a bucket of lava if we have 8 nether brick, and the answer to that is nope, we do not have 8 nether brick, but I think we can get 8 nether brick by crafting blast brick with coal. We made way too much blast brick in the last episode for the arc furnaces, and so boom, there's our lava, and boom, that's going to do its job. We do need to swap this from whatever it starts on to andesite. Perfect. And then, of course, as per usual, it is going to require, you guessed it, an energy exporter with an omnidirectional connector, which we'll put down ideally right on the top. He says he puts it on the side. I would very much so prefer that's on the top, though, because then we can actually pull off to the side for other machines we're going to need. And so once that's on, we can put in a variable card, and boom, that's going to start working. And of course, we can make this really as fast as we need. Right now, it's not particularly fast, but if we need it to be faster, we can, of course, make augments. We can make upgrade kits. You get the idea. Back over this way, we can look at stealing this rock crusher, and we'll go place that down directly next to the igneous extruder, because, of course, the igneous extruder can just auto-eject to the side. So auto-eject is on by default. You are going to start crushing andesite into beryllium, alugentium, and arsenic. Arsenic, of course, is the one we're after. Let's once again grab another energy exporter. Boom. Boom. And boom. This does require 2,000 redstone flux per tick, so we are going to have to tweak the energy output here. We'll set that to 5,000. That's going to start crushing the andesite down, and then I guess what we'll do is we'll get another 2x2 draw. Thankfully, we do have a framed 2x2 draw ready to go, and we can just quickly texture that downstairs. That's going to allow us to kind of back up on everything. We'll put a void upgrade in there to make sure that the whole thing keeps running, because the arsenic is really the only thing that we're after. So the void upgrade, which does require another upgrade base, which of course we're constantly making those. The void upgrade can go in here. We'll set you to extract, always active, and insert. That should start to receive all three of the different items that are produced there. We're then going to specifically extract the arsenic, and that arsenic, I think, is going into a melter. Let me check that, though. I'm going to bookmark the boron arsenide. And so for this, yes, we need a melter next. So my melter is currently non-existent. That is fine, though. I have a sneaking suspicion I'm going to need a few more of these. Let me get a melter. We're going to need 2 melters, I think, one for regular boron and one for the arsenic as well. So give me, you know what, just give me like a bunch of these. I'm going to make just a load of these machine chassis so that we can just make these nuclear craft machines without having to keep coming back over and over again to get more of the same recipes. And then advanced plating, we can, of course, go and steal from our researchers. And we'll steal a few of these, again, just to kind of have. It's not ideal because I think as soon as we take them and put them in the system, they might get re-exported again. But if we keep them in our inventory, we should be fine. Boom, there's our melter, and that melter is going to go down here. Then, if we set it to insert, is going to take the crushed arsenic, which I am going to take as soon as I lock this drawer. We're going to take that, and I think we're going to want to filter here. I don't know if it's strictly necessary because I don't know if you can melt any of the other resources, but just to play it safe, let's do this and kind of overwrite this filter to this, always active. That's going to take the arsenic and ideally place it into the melter. Nice. Once that has power, that's then going to make the molten arsenic, and then from there we need a chemical reactor, this guy right here. That seems very doable. We need another electric motor, which as per usual needs more copper solenoids. I'm going to make like a stack of copper solenoids because we've got tens of thousands of copper and iron. Boom. And then we also need another one of those servo mechanisms. That's not a problem. And glowstone we have. Perfect. So we'll have that go over here, right? So I might actually change this just to make it a little bit more compact, because we might even need to put more stuff up here. So what I might do is I might take this and move this kind of up here like that. And then if we take the reactor, I'll probably take the reactor and put the reactor like here, because we're going to have to do another thing on the other side here that takes the boron and produces that, because this is kind of the middle of the equation, right? We need to take the stuff that comes out of the chemical reactor, that being the molten boron arsenide, and we need to run that through an ingot former. So the ingot former should be another machine that we can fairly easily make. It is indeed. Perfect. We'll have that down, let's say here. We'll extract out from there. That's all going to be good. This needs to be, I think, a fluid pipe, actually, not an item pipe. That's okay, though. Going into the reactor, we need molten boron. So for that, we need the melter. Oh, no, yeah, we can just melt regular boron. I don't know what I clicked before. Oh, there's molten boron, and then there's different versions of molten boron. We just need regular molten boron. That is not a problem. Let me get another melter, and let's put that down on the other side of the reactor here. So we just need to export molten boron to that. That's fine. The molten boron is going to go here, get combined with the arsenic liquid. In here, those are going to combine together to make the boron arsenide, molten version. And then the ingot former is going to turn that into boron arsenide, which is perfect. That's what we need. And so we'll just get another regular drawer. Make sure it looks like the rest of our drawers. And that is going to be the final resting place of the boron arsenide. And we're just going to continue to produce that until this drawer is full. I could put a storage downgrade on here, but I don't think it's strictly necessary. So let me quickly hook all of these up with energy, and we'll see if this works. All right, so we've got power going to all of these, and I've also set up an item exporter here to export boron to this machine. Perfect. And then all we should have to do now is throw down fluid pipes between all of these machines and the chemical reactor. The chemical reactor is going to be inserting here and here. We're, of course, going to extract always active here and extract always active here. That should put in both the molten arsenic and ideally the molten boron when it gets there. Did I set that to 5,000? I think I did. I did indeed. That could just be a power output problem, like we might be running into a power issue, especially given that we're now using a lot of power with our production researchers. But then over here, same idea, extract, always active, and insert. And then, of course, here, extract, always active, and insert. And that should, slowly but surely, very slowly but surely, get us what we're after. We do have more speed and energy upgrades that we could begin to trickle in here. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Let's do you and you. I think, oh, it doesn't require energy. Interesting, fair enough. The ingot former doesn't need power. I was going to put it in up here anyway. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that should be 5,000 RF per tick. It is indeed. That should make us the molten arsenic, which is going to get pulled down, and the ingot former can use speed upgrades, I think. Yeah, it doesn't require power, but you can put speed upgrades in there. And boom, makes boron arsenide. Nice. I'm not going to put all of these speed upgrades in there because we don't need it that fast, and also I do want to use those elsewhere where they are more useful. But this is good to go, and that is going to continue to make boron arsenide for us, as with the graphite ingots. All we need to do is throw an item interface right about there, make sure that's connected up to the rest of the network, and I really don't like that cable, but you know what? I'm going to throw down just another omnidirectional connector right about there. Perfect. So now that's hooked up. We're going to make more of that. We can use that, of course, to make research, which is perfect. Or at least we can use it to make the thermoconducting alloy, which we can then use to make research. Speaking of research, how are we doing over here? We got 53 X8 utility. That is fine. While we wait, let me grab the 1 boron arsenide. Let me grab 1 like extreme alloy, and let me create the lists over here to make this actually work. So we just taught our system how to make the extreme alloy. Can I request at least 1 extreme alloy? The answer should be yes, and it should hopefully come through pretty quickly because we should have the graphite for it, we should have the diamonds for it. It should just be a case of however long it takes the electrode alloyer to produce the ingot. Never mind, we didn't add these to the list. That makes complete sense, actually. I do need to have at least 1 hard carbon left over, but we also do need to have 1 of the extreme ingots as well. So the extreme ingot is made. That's fine, we'll take that. I would also like to request a hard carbon ingot, which we've already got. Perfect. So basically, all we need to do here is just create 2 more lists. So right now, we've got item cards here. I'm going to take those out, and I'm just going to wipe them clean, which you can normally do. Yeah, that did work. Okay, it just looked a little funky. That's okay. Let's do you and you. Perfect. So there are 3 new alloys we need to make. Thermoconductive alloy, extreme alloy, and hard carbon. Those are the 3 we need to make. And so we need to add the items for that to a list that we can then add in place of that item card we just took. So let me do a little bit of inventory clearing here. I don't need the hot graphite on me. I need diamonds going to 1 card. I then need graphite ingots going to a different card. So we'll do that there. Then, that's for the hard carbon. Then for the extreme alloy, we need hard carbon going to 1 and tough alloy going to the other. Do we have any tough alloy left? We do. So we'll have tough alloy going to 1 and hard carbon going to the other. And then the final piece of the puzzle is the extreme alloy and the boron arsenide. That is basically the 2 lists we need to make. So in here, we're going to go list, we're going to go card, we're going to go items, and we're going to say add diamond, add tough alloy, and add extreme alloy. Done. That's 1 list taken care of. We're then going to make a new list. Again, items. This time around, though, we're going to have graphite ingots. We're going to have add hard carbon alloy, add boron arsenide. Done. And then we need to put 1 of these in over here. Export items. And 1 of those in over here. If we really wanted to, we could have gone through and like remade this list, right? There's a list here that has, you know, copper, lead, nickel, tin, whatever on one side, and then the other stuff on the other side. We made those episodes ago. I just didn't want to have to remake a list with like 18 ingots on each side because that would have been a pain. And so this does work. And so now, I think, finally, we should be able to request the thermoconducting alloy. I think we have everything we need for that. Assuming we have a couple of boron arsenide upstairs, which I assume we do now. Yeah, we got 4 in total. So, let's see. If I want just 2 of these, start, it should make the hard carbon alloy first, then the extreme alloy, then the thermoconducting alloy, and it should do it all automatically, and it should kind of just be good. Yep, that looks right. And if we check back in the system, there they are. Beautiful. That's perfect because it means now if we want to automate quantum research, we can just put down an item exporter, tell that item exporter to export the thermoconducting alloy, and if we set crafting to true, it's just going to keep making those alloys and exporting them for quantum research, which is perfect. Then, as far as the DU plating goes, this is sulfur, uranium, and advanced plating. Advanced plating we're already making. We're hopefully going to start making it faster once we move plastic over and make plastic faster. Uranium-238, we are making, but probably not fast enough, which is wild, because over here we have a drawer for uranium-238, but it's empty, and we are already kind of making this quite quick. The trouble, of course, right now is that this reactor isn't online because we're so full up on depleted fuel. Once we start using that depleted fuel, this reactor is going to start making a lot of power again, which is going to increase the speed at which we get the uranium-238, and so I'm somewhat hopeful that we can potentially just throw down an item interface right about here, and then connect that up to the system. And going forward, I'm hopeful that we can then use that uranium-238 in the production of the DU plating. The only other thing we need is sulfur. Sulfur we are getting as a byproduct of pulverizing blaze powder, so we have some here. And if we wanted to, we could also just get another storage drawer, along with another loot fabricator, and divvy up our blaze matter, our blaze pristine matter, that is, to get both blaze rods and sulfur. Yeah, the only thing we're missing for that is just a block of coal, which we can now make. We've got a lot more coal coming in, and we need a little bit more in the way of aluminum sheet metal. That is completely fine. Boom. And boom. Let's drop you down all the way back over here. I'm kind of just thinking if we do this and this, we could move this to here. We can set this to insert if it's not already. And then if we put down another item conduit here, we can set you to insert as well. Make sure you're set to extract on round robin. This is already backed up, so over here this is working. Sulfur is being made. And then, of course, we'll just set this to extract to make sure it doesn't connect in the middle there. Extract, always active, and insert. And that should start to receive the sulfur. Of course, just as soon as we throw down yet one more energy conduit. Nice. And then, of course, as per usual, you get the gist here. We can get another item interface, throw that down right about there, boom, and boom. And now we've got unlimited sulfur being made. So, I think that's kind of everything but the Californium. The DU plating is a work in progress, but I think the uranium's going to come in. We can make the advanced plating faster once we get our next 2 reactors up, and once we're getting power coming in again consistently from the LEU-233 reactor. The sulfur is coming on automatically. The system knows how to make the thermoconducting alloys. We're making the boron arsenic automatically, albeit slowly, but we can speed that up in the future if we need to. We can make the extreme alloys. We're making the graphite ingots automatically as well. We've got coal cut coming in. We've got more coal coming in. It's now just a case of actually getting that Californium, and for that, we just need to wait a couple more minutes until we have 64 lots of utility research, although, as I alluded to earlier, we are not actually getting most of the utility research, and I have a feeling that if we take all of the utility research out of all of these researchers, that we probably have very close to 64 lots of utility research. Let me see if that is indeed the case. We were at 53 before, and we are now at 65. Perfect. Okay, so with that, we can go down to here. We can hand this in, and we are now able to make those tin coolers to build the next reactor. So, we previously were looking at getting a reactor set up to run this next stage of fuel, and after letting the LEU-235 website run for a little bit, this is the reactor that we're going to go with. For it, we need 270 casing, we need 94 lapis coolers, 70 tin coolers, and then 48 reactor cells. This should be pretty straightforward. If we check in the system, as I mentioned earlier, we do have 165 empty coolers ready to go, so all we should have to do is craft those into lapis coolers and tin coolers. Our lapis, of course, is coming in quite nicely, thanks to the new supercomputer that we have set up just for lapis, and then as for tin, we do only have 4,000 tin, which I think should be more than enough, although I have not yet checked if we need any tin blocks for the tin coolers. We don't, it's just tin ingots, and so this should be completely fine. Let's quickly see here, do we have what it takes to make 70 tin coolers? That is of course going to get us 64, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 takes us to 70, and then as far as the 94 lapis coolers go, we do already have one lapis cooler. That means we need one more stick, and then approximately 32 more. I'm just going to craft the remainder of the 30 that we have, and I'm pretty sure that 64 plus 32 is bigger than 94. So now all we need to do is get 48 reactor cells, these guys right here. These do require quite a bit of tough alloy. We only have 28 tough alloy currently available. However, we do have, I believe, completely full drawers of 2048 lithium and 2048 boron, and so we should be able to very easily request quite a lot of tough alloy here. Again, we'll go for a few hundred. Again, a few hundred tough alloy, not a few hundred lots of 64. That would be insane. Let's go for 704. Start and start. They should start to come in quite quickly. We don't need that many for this craft, but of course we do want to then set up yet another reactor for the final fuel that we're going to burn. And so once that tough alloy comes in, which shouldn't be too long now, we can then fairly easily get ourselves 48 more of these reactor cells. We do already have 8 available, and there we go, 48 reactor cells. And so now I'm going to go ahead and using this design pattern, which is a little trickier than the last two because this one has no symmetry whatsoever. So all of the levels are different and all of the levels themselves are not symmetrical in the X, Y, or Z directions. But let's get it set up and let's see if we can't start burning the next tier of fuel. And then from there, we'll go back to LU 235 and we'll find yet another reactor for the final tier of fuel. All right, so quite a while later, we now have our third fission reactor down, and it looks like it all has come together perfectly because the number here does match up this time. We're at negative 37,450 heat units per tick. And so now it's just a case of getting this fuel right here, the HEP 241 fuel, into this reactor. Previously, we had the sequential fabricator right next to the previous reactor, which did make this easier. On this one, I feel like we might as well continue the jank and I guess put like a port here. If we put a port there, we should be able to run an item conduit from the top of this sequential fabricator across like this. I am going to disconnect that item conduit there so it doesn't connect up because that's not what we want. And then instead, we can just do something like this and like this. And so long as the top of that is set to extract and always active, and of course, so long as this is set to insert, we should be able to auto-insert this HEP 241 fuel. Extract, always active, make sure the top is set to output, fantastic. And then the final piece of the puzzle should just be putting a lever on the controller and getting this whole thing online. So let's see, lever, boom. The benefit, of course, is that as we do that, all of the other systems are going to keep going as well, which means we should start getting more power from this because now the backlog is no longer burned up, which means all of our power comes in, which means we're processing uranium and stuff faster, which is always good. Over here, we are going to get even more power from this, and so another thing that could be potentially useful is getting at least one more HV capacitor, and before we turn this reactor on, if we do something like this and drop another fission port here, we should be able to pull that power out into another HV capacitor bank. All we're missing for that is 2 HVY connectors, which we can make, fantastic. So if we do this, now any fuel that comes out of here should get sent around into this input buffer. Again, right now you'll see that we're actually filling up this 90 million RF input buffer quite nicely, but that is exactly what we want because the idea is that we're going to start using some of that power to make plastic faster once we have this whole setup going. Back over here, let's do this and this. And this is looking good. Heat is staying at 0, and we are processing the HEP 241 into depleted HEP 241, and we're going to take that and process it. So just like before, we need another fuel reprocessor. That's going to go down right about here. We then, once again, need 2 more compacting drawers. We'll do the exact same setup. We'll put one here and here. We also do need another framed drawer, which we've got. That's going to go here. And so this time around, we're going to, again, go with integrated dynamics just because it is substantially faster. We'll throw down 2 cables here and here. We then need... Oh, I don't know what's up with this one. Ingredient movement failed due to an inconsistent insertion behavior by destination in simulation and non-simulation mode. This can be caused by invalid network setups. Ejected failed item into the world. Interesting. I wonder if that's just because it was full? Anyway, we need 3 item exporters. For that, we need more item interfaces. For that, we need more chests of all things. That is completely fine. Let's do one of these, and we'll get another stack of chests. That's going to get us, ideally, another stack of item interfaces, and then a couple of item exporters. We also need 1 item importer and 1 item interface. The item interface is easy enough. We already have it. And the item importer, also pretty straightforward. So the item importer is going to go here. The item interface is going to go down on the bottom here. I think it did just pull it from my inventory. That's fine. And then we're going to have item exporters here, here, and here. So in here, we're just going to import all items. That should pull them down into here. It totally does. Then it's going to go ahead and process the depleted HEP241 fuel into americium, curium, curium-246, and curium-247. The 246 and 247 are the only ones that we need, and so curium-245 and the americium, those are going to go into the framed drawer. So we'll take 245 and americium. I'm going to split those again, because just like before, I want to have 2 separate sections filled with this. We could have used a 2x1 drawer here instead of a 2x2, but we already had the 2x2 lying around, so I figured we might as well. We can then lock this drawer, and we can take the 246, 247, put those in here and here. And again, because all of these are locked, we don't have to do any filtering on the item exporters. We can just say export all items, and you guessed it, export all items, because those are the only items that can go into those drawers. Then we need to, of course, take our sequential fabricator, put that down right about here. You are going to make for us the HECM247 fuel, and we're going to make the right an input, the left an input, and we'll do output on the top again. And then just like before, we will connect this here. First of all, I'm going to disconnect that, put that here, disconnect that, and then we can re-enable that as an input just to make sure we don't get anything else in there. You, insert, you are going to be extract, always active. And then the exact same over on this side. We get 1 more item conduit. That's going to go here, you, insert. And then if we can stand on this chest, we can do extract, always active. And then I do want to put a pattern validation augment in there. And I want to make sure that only the right things go in, which I think is what the pattern validation augment is going to do for us. Let's do that. Perfect. It did complete a quest for us, which is good. This one right here. There are a few other quests we could complete by getting some of these other items, but I don't necessarily think we need them. And yeah, this should be producing the HECM247 fuel. And so now we need to head back once again to leu235.com, which is here. And we've already started the simulation for this. Again, I put in all of the same information at the top. I've limited to only using tin and lapis coolers, so all the rest are not allowed. This time I have left the symmetry on just for ease of building. And down here, you'll see that our reactor has been chugging away. We've done quite a few simulations at this point. I'm going to go ahead and hit stop. And this is the reactor we're going to build. So it's pretty similar. We need the exact same number of lapis coolers and tin coolers, which makes sense because back over in the game here, the HECM has a heat of 750 and the HEP241 has a base heat of 780. So they're basically the same heat output. So it's going to be a very similar reactor with yet more lapis and yet more tin coolers. And here we go. We've got our coolers and our reactor cells down. I realized I didn't show the reactor with the tin coolers previously. And so now we're just going to fill this up and then we'll look at getting the final tier of fuel into it. And finally, we have our 4th and final fission reactor. So now all we should need to do is clear out this tree to make a bit of space. This time around, we do need another fuel reprocessor, which means ideally we're going to get more HV capacitor banks. I think we're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more of them, which could be a little bit pricey. We would need 14 of these, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. Actually, never mind, we're all good on that front. And then how many can we make? The answer is 1, because we need to make more of the HV capacitors. For this, we need, 6 more of these? And we're just missing wooden storage crates, which are completely fine because we've got a ton of treated wooden planks. And so we'll throw, hopefully, a stack of those back in the system. Fantastic. And then if we have enough signalum, we'll go for 6 more of those, and that should be almost everything. I'm almost certain we're going to run out of HV wire coil. Never mind. Apparently I made more than enough. Good stuff. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's run that over. And up to here, we're then going to replace you, of course, again, with a reactor port. We'll do the same thing we've done up here, where we'll put the reactor port down right about there, and then using item conduits, we can, of course, run across. Did I attach to the front last time? I did. Let's do the same again here, just for consistency's sake. We'll get rid of that one. And we're just going to connect this up, of course, to the sequential fabricator over here, making sure, as per usual, not to connect this one up. And I'll also put down a little bit of dirt so we can do work up here more easily. Let's do this. Let's do not this. Let's make sure that nothing should go in there because I've not set that to insert yet. So here, you're going to be set to output at the top, as well as extract, always active. And then over here, we can now finally set that to insert. That's going to receive the HECM247 fuel. And yep, with that in, the heat is at negative 300, which is perfect. And so, yeah, I think we're basically good to go. Let's put down our fuel reprocessor here. This time, it's going to take the depleted HECM247, and it's going to produce just the things that we need. So this time around, we need to just throw down a standard 2x2 draw, which we can do like that, and then we just need to have an exporter and an interface along with an item importer. So, item exporter, item importer, and item interface. The interface, as per usual, is going to go here, the importer here, and the exporter here. And so now, if we do the final piece of the puzzle and we grab a lever, we should be able to get this to work. It's going to produce a bunch of power, which is good. 40,000 redstone flux per tick. I can't help but notice that power is not going into here, but that's just because this is full, which I think is fine. This can fill up on power. This one lasts a real long time, which is surprising. It does say at the top there, base processing time is 30 minutes. And so, obviously, we've made a fairly large reactor here, so it's going to go for quite a while. The fact that this lasts so long, and the fact that we have so many of them, though, is good. It means we can make this 40,000 RF per tick very consistently. For now, we just kind of want to get this one depleted fuel, which is going to happen any second now. Fantastic. I'm then going to temporarily turn that off. Over here, we want to make sure that you are set to import everything. That should put them down here. It totally does. This is going to reprocess that fuel, and then we're finally going to get our first bits of Californium, and that Californium is then finally what we need to actually get quantum research up and running. So all we're going to do is we're going to lock this draw to all 4 fuel types. I'm also going to get some draw upgrades, at least one here, and we'll also go with a void upgrade as well, because we want this whole system to keep going no matter what, because if it stops going, that means we stop getting power, and that means that if we do end up moving our plastic over here, of course, if the power stops, the plastic stops, and if the plastic stops, everything else stops, which is not ideal. So all we want to do is take all 4 of these. That I was hoping would be a quest complete, but it's not. Let's do 1, 2, 3, and 4. Already, this can hold way more Californium than we actually need, because the research itself only requires tiny clumps of Californium, but for whatever reason, the quest wants me to hand in like a full isotope. So I think for that, all we're going to need to do is something like this, take this out, complete the quest, and then kind of craft it back down into the tiny version, because the tiny version is actually what we need in order to get the research. And so now, we've got what it takes to make the thermoconducting alloy, we've got what it takes to make the DU plating, and we have the tiny clumps of Californium. The only thing left to do is set up at least one, but of course ideally a couple of researchers over here to get us that quantum research. The trouble is that we actually don't have space for another line of researchers, and so I think what I might end up doing is kind of doubling up on this last row. So I think I'll leave these 4 here for the chemical research, and I think start kind of working backwards from the end here, I might get another 4 going for the quantum research, and then we'll hook that up and see if we can get that working. And we'll also look at moving this plastic over as well to get plastic producing just that little bit faster. All right, so a little while later, I've put down 4 new reactors. I've also thrown down 3 drawers at the end here. So we're using the same line as for the chemical research, but we're just doing it at the other end. The idea is that over here, we're going to put in the things that we need, such as the thermoconducting alloy. That's going to go in the middle. That is on the green line. We're then also going to get some of the plating that we need. Specifically, we are after the DU plating, which we should be able to get. There are 2 problems we're currently running into. The first problem is that we're not producing the advanced plating fast enough. Hopefully when we get plastic coming in faster, that's not going to be a problem. The second problem is that we don't have any uranium over here to access, because all of the uranium-238 that we're producing is being used by this setup. And so what I think I'm going to do, just to make life a little easier, is something like this, and then something like this. And if we set this to round robin and set this to insert, we should be able to get kind of just a secondary draw of uranium. I am going to put a storage downgrade in there because we don't want all of our uranium backing up in here. 1 stack is more than enough, but then if we put an interface on there, that's going to allow us to access that uranium for use in making the quantum research. So we'll go 1 and 2, and then all the way back on the other end of the base, if we have at least 1 of the uranium-238, we can then export that. While I'm here, I'm also going to grab 1 of each of these Californium isotopes, because we're going to create a new filter list if we grab a new variable card. And in here, we're going to say variable card, list, and we're going to go to items. We're going to add the 251, we're going to add the 252, and we're going to add the 249. And then that list is going to go into the exporter above the 2x2 drawer. This one right here. We're going to say export items, and that should start to export those into here. We'll go 1, 2, 3, and hopefully we see even more of those getting exported. I think I've not put yet an item interface over on the first drawer, which is why that's not happening. Over here, we're going to do the same thing again. This time around, we're going to get a variable card, and we're going to tell this one to continually export the thermoconducting alloys, making sure that crafting is set to enabled. And I think we will put a storage downgrade on that drawer just to make sure that we don't end up spending all of our system's time just making an infinite number of the thermoconducting alloys. It does appear that we are once again completely out of mineral chunks. As per usual, it's fairly easily fixed by just throwing some more mineral logs around into our fluid transposer. Good stuff. While we wait for that to come in, we should now be able to make, at the very least, our first plating. We totally can. We're just missing, of course, that 1 advanced alloy. One thing I do want to do is I want to get like at least 1 of these here. So let's get you stolen, and then let's do this. And then if we take, for example, this guy, we'll go and we'll put the DU plating in here. We'll put the thermoconducting alloy in here, and we'll take at least 1 of our isotopes, making sure that we lock that drawer first. We'll take 1 of these isotopes and we'll throw that in here. This is going to take about 5 minutes if we had enough energy, which apparently we don't, which surprises me. That is not a surprise, actually. It's because I didn't set this to 5,000. There we go. Now that should start to work. Of course, one of the things that we are going to do is we are going to make some more of the energy upgrades. Those energy upgrades can, of course, be used to bring the power usage down on this quite a bit. We could even make the tier 3 energy upgrades if we wanted to, although I really don't think the power is going to be a huge problem with this. I think the tier 2 upgrades will probably do the job just fine. How are we doing on mineral? We got 63. Nice. And so we can go back and make the variable cards. This time around, we want to have 1 that is set to item, thermoconducting alloy, variable card. We then want to make sure that we do get those downgrades. I'm going to make 2 more storage downgrades, and I'm going to put them into both of these drawers. So here and here. You are going to be locked to the thermoconducting alloy. And then in here, we're going to put the card for the thermoconducting alloy into the exporter and turn crafting to true. That is going to continually export those. It's going to try and craft them if it can. And then over here, we want to do the same thing, but with the plating. So let's take a little bit of plating. Let's make at least 1 more of these guys. And then we'll do the same thing in here. We'll go variable card. We'll type in item. We'll throw down our DU plating. and then we're going to set crafting to true, and then it's just going to be a case of teaching the system how to actually make the plating. Again, right now, it's not going to be able to because it has no excess advanced plating, but hopefully, when we get plastic up and running faster, we should hopefully start to back up on DU plating in here, at which point we can just throw down another item interface onto this guy. It really doesn't matter too much where we do it, and I guess here is probably the easiest place, even though it looks a little bit worse. We should start to back up there, at which point over in here, we can teach one of our sequential fabricators over here to make that DU plating, and at that point it's going to start trying to make it and export it to the correct drawer. For that, we need one more crafting interface. We'll throw you down, let's say right about here, make sure that's got a cable. Inside of here, we'll say you make DU plating. As per usual, we shouldn't need a pattern validation augment because the integrated dynamic system shouldn't really send more than it needs to. And so once again, should be a case of doing this, going to recipe, teaching it this recipe, and just dropping that in over here. Nice. And so now our system should know how to make the DU plating. We have the sulfur. It has access to the uranium. The only thing it doesn't have access to, of course, is the advanced plating, which we're working on. And so now the semi-final piece of the puzzle is to do something like this and make sure that our system does have access to... Oh no, that's not quite right because we don't want this connected to the main network. What I want to do is I want to disconnect that, and I kind of just want to do something like... I guess I'll put it on top just for symmetry, actually, now that I think about it. What we'll do, we'll go up here. We're going to put the item interface on the top. Like that, cable on that. And then we'll throw one of these omnidirectional connectors on top of that. That is our last omnidirectional connector, and so as per usual, we'll make a fresh batch of those just so we don't completely run out. It also appears that we are completely out of cable as well, which is not surprising. Let me get really as many cable as I can. 63 is perfect. That lets me get one more of these monodirectional connectors, and with that we get another 3 omnidirectional connectors. We'll throw one of those down right about here, and now we should see this Californium being taken away and used over here for the production of quantum research. I have set all of these to extract on round robin, and so now if we connect this here, we should hopefully start to see that Californium being distributed amongst all of the researchers. We are indeed, and over here we are very slowly but surely working our way towards that quantum research. It's going to take a few more minutes for it to come in, but that's completely fine. So next time, chat, we'll come back. We will hopefully have some quantum research. We will move the plastic production over. I'll probably do that between streams. I'm just going to whack the plastic production kind of right about here and then run HE capacitor banks over to it to allow us to give the electrolyzer just as much power as we need to give it to get as much plastic as we need. Right now, we are just backing up on plastic. And of course, we do want to get that running again and get everything else back online. But yeah, now it's basically a case of upping our research production to allow us to get all of the research required for these big 3 research dump quests. After that, we then need to start working on these 5 item handing quests, and then there's also 1 power handing quest for 10 billion redstone flux per tick, which I don't think is going to be too bad. If we're producing about 300,000 redstone flux per tick over by our reactors, that means we're producing about 6 million redstone flux per second, which means it'd take about 27 minutes to get to 10 billion, which is a little while, but it should be very doable if we just start pumping that power into there. And the rest of these really don't look too bad. Just some more research to unlock and a little bit of automation to take care of. But I think we're pretty close to the end of the pack. But for now, we're going to have to go ahead and wrap up this episode of Feed the Factory there.